Hi everyone, welcome to my next video in a series of PC tips and tricks. This one is actually around working with compressed files, compressing, uncompressing, the different formats, like zip, 7-zip, RAR, etc. So, for some people this might be quite straightforward, but there's others that that haven't done it before, especially when you're working with the large downloads that you've got, perhaps that are split across multiple files, that kind of stuff. So just to give some pointers exactly how to work with them, and the best couple of little tips along the way as well. So basically so zip files, I think probably most people have heard of them. They're been around a long time now, and it's basically a way of taking a bunch of files or folders or both and compressing them down into a single manageable zip file. So you can back up some data or transfer some data, email data to someone, and you've got a whole bunch of files that you want to do, rather than send them individually, or a whole bunch of attachments on an email, for example. You could take a zip program, zip them into a single file, which obviously, like I say, it'll make it into a single file, but also reduce the size. Again, handy if you're emailing, and then you can send it off. So that's been around for a long time. I think most people have probably come across zip files at some point. And the zip file, I guess, was the first standard format for it. Even these days, Windows has zip, and it has done for a while actually, zip format support built into Windows Explorer, so you can just double click and right-click extract on a zip file if you've got it on your Windows machine, and probably the same for other operating systems, for Linux and for Mac, etc. And obviously over time things have developed, so I think probably at the moment the three big ones are zip, and then a 7-zip and RAR. And basically sort of 7-zip and RAR came along, basically sort of improving the compression algorithms to give even higher rates of compression, more options around encrypting, splitting a zip file across multiple files, making it easy to download or transfer, etc. So just a quick look at those ones that I just mentioned. You've got 7-zip, which is my personal one that I use. You can come here, download it. You can use it from the command line, or from Windows it's much easier using the 7-zip manager, which is a GUI interface which looks a bit like this. So you can open up zip files or even 7-zip or RAR files. So just as a note, 7-zip obviously supports zips, 7-zips, RARs, and probably a whole bunch of other different formats. And then likewise you've got WinRAR, which, like you say, it looks very the same, and again it supports RAR files and 7-zip and zip, and probably a whole bunch of others as well. So but like I say, I tend to use 7-zip. Here's the download page. Obviously you pick the version corresponding to your system, and away you go. So I guess it's a quick demo. I have got some files here. So I've got a test folder. There's some others in here which I'll use for a minute to demo, but so this is my test folder with a bunch of files and folders in it. If I wanted to email it to someone, or just take a backup, or sort of do whatever I want to do with it, maybe it's old data you just want to back up and save it in disk space, so you can compress it and store it away somewhere. So with 7-zip installed, you can right click. Obviously this is Windows 11, so I mean, here's I was talking about the zip format built into Windows, so you can compress it to a standard zip file straight from Windows without installing a 7-zip or WinRAR. But if you click on the more options, you get kind of the menu that you're used to in Windows 10, and you have the 7-zip integration. So here we can, like I say, do straight off to a zip file, to a 7-zip file, compress it, and then open up a new email for you. But if we just go to Add to Archive, you'll get the kind of standard interface. So this is where you actually pick a few more options. We're going to be more specific with the zip file. So, like I say, you can do it in 7-zip. There's tar files, and that's tar is probably more familiar to those with kind of a Linux and Unix background. Tar and zip balls, etc. But yeah, here we can do 7-zip and zip. So obviously the formats it can use when it compresses are less than what it can uncompress. So obviously it can't compress as a RAR, but it can read and uncompress RARs, but we'll come to that in a minute. So leave it at 7-zip, that'll give you the best compression level. And talking of which, these are some of the levels built in. So store is basically don't compress it, just take all those files, stick them in a zip file or a 7-zip file, but don't compress them. So they'll be the same size. They'll just be, I guess, just easy to manage because in a single file. And then you can go through the different levels of compression. So obviously this one is the fastest, and it tells you down here, to uncompress that, how much memory is it going to use. So you can go right down to ultra, which I tend to use. Uses a bit more memory to uncompress it, and it takes longer because your machine's got to work harder, running through the more algorithms to compress and save space in the file. So it does take longer, and does take longer to uncompress, but at the end of the day it will save you more disk space, so that's probably quite important if you're going to upload it to a cloud service. You want to make it as small as possible, unless you've got a really fast internet link, unlike me, then you're probably not too worried. But yeah, so you basically pick the compression files, and if you're going for these high ones, especially with 7-zip, I found if you go for ultra, then normally you'll probably need 7-zip to unpack it the other end, to extract it. If someone tried to just extract that with a default app, then it may not be able to understand it because it's done at this ultra high level. So that's just something to be aware of, that if you're going to send it out to someone that doesn't have 7-zip, obviously you can advise them to install it, or you could just do sort of normal compression, or just do it as a zip file rather than 7-zip. But anyway, I tend to use this. A bunch of options here around the compression method. That's obviously the default. There's a few others which I'm not going to claim to know exactly what they all are, but it's just basically different methods of compression, and I'm sure if you read into it, there'll be some methods that are better with certain types of files, some better with Office docs, some are better with picture files, some better with MP3s and videos. But anyway, so I leave it as a default. You can tell it a number of threads. I've got 8 threads, and I'm going to use 8 threads to do the compression. I mean, you might want to change that if you're doing a large compression in the background while you're working on something else. You could drop that down so it doesn't take over your PC. And then this is another option which come to on the extracts. What you see quite a lot if you do a large download, sometimes those large downloads are split into multiple files. So here's where you can say, okay, well, I want to zip it all up. It's quite big, but I want to split it into either 10 meg, 100 meg, or 1 gig chunks. And there's some predefined ones here. So 650, 700, big enough to put on a CD. 4 gig, that's the single file size limit for FAT or FAT32 formatted drives. They can have a single file no bigger than 4 gig. Obviously with NTFS, that's not an issue. And then there's roughly 4 gig for DVD, 8 for dual layer DVD, and what's that, 23 gig for a Blu-ray. But anyway, so in the option, sorry, the example I'm going to give for extracting, the people that have compressed it have done this one, the 700 meg. So we can pick that. Although at the moment, these test ones I've got here are tiny, so they're not going to reach 700 meg anyway. So, or you can just leave that blank, to be honest. A whole bunch of other options over here, which normally you don't really need to touch. The update mode is if you're adding files into an existing zip file or 7-zip file. You can either put them in and replace files that are already there, or add to them, etc. But generally you can leave that. Path mode is if I'm backing up this D test, when you open it, there'll be the other person opening it, or if I open it, I'll see a top level folder of test and then the stuff underneath it. If I was doing a folder that was like several layers deep and I pick relative path, I'll just have the test folder. If I pick full path and that test was under the files test 2, whatever, you'll see that whole path when you go to extract it. So relative path is normally fine. There's a couple of options here. Probably don't tick this one unless you're happy to do that. You want to make sure everything's okay before you delete the source file. So I'd leave that. And here's how you compress. So if you want to compress it, you put your password in here. You pick the method. AES256 is the encryption method. So I'll type in my super sensitive password in here. Take it back out again. So if you do it like that, it'll encrypt the contents of the zip file. So if someone gets their hands on it but you don't want to, maybe it's got some sensitive information in there, if you're using it like this, they'll double click it, they'll be able to open it and sort of preview it and see the files that are inside it. If they try to actually extract or open in those files, it will then ask them for a password. If, however, some of the file names are sensitive, you don't want anyone to see what's actually in the zip file anyway, or at all, tick this box and it will now compress not only the actual data that's in the compressed file, but actually the file names as well. So if someone gets hold of the zip file, they double click it to open it, it will immediately ask them for the password before they can even see what's in it. So that's probably quite an important one. So I'm not going to password protect or encrypt this one. So I'm going to do ultra. So just hit OK. Going to compress them. See the temp file there, and then compress. It changes. So if I double click this now, it will default open it in 7-zip manager. And now we can browse through it, we can go into it, and we can if we want to. I'll just move this that way for a second. You can just pick a file and just drag it to your desktop, and it will just do that one. Or like I say, you can come up a level and you can drag the whole lot over here, and it'll do the whole lot. And, simple as that. And that's okay for small files. But in a minute I'll do an extraction demo on a larger file, and doing that isn't the best way to do it. But yeah, that's basically it. As easy as it is. Just double click it, open up, and away you go. If for some whatever reason your 7-zip files aren't associated with the 7-zip file manager, what you can do, and you may need to do it the first time you launch it, is see mine's associated because it's changed the icon. But normally if you double click it and it's not associated, it'll come up with something like this saying, I don't understand it, what do you want to do it with? Obviously mine's already there, but you would click on more apps and find the 7-zip file manager in the list. If it's not there, you can click on find, and if you go into program, normally C drive, but whatever drive your OS is on, program files, 7-zip, and then the exe is 7-zip FM, which is 7-zip file manager. So you just say okay with that, and then from now on, when you've done that, you should find the icon changes 7-zip, so it's now associated. So every time you double click a 7-zip file, it will automatically open it in this in the file manager, and then you can also do whatever you want to do. That we can now do that, or we can add more files into this. I think that's really because I've got the high encryption, high compression turned on for that one. But yeah, you can basically manipulate the file as you want. So quick demo now on something larger. Anyone sort of familiar with the retro gaming scene will maybe recognise CoinOps as a emulation front end or builds. I'm downloading a few at the moment because I'm putting some onto my arcade cab, so pretty cool stuff. But anyway, I've got a few downloaded here, like you see. There's one here called Focus. Actually no, that one's already done. It's this one, Football Collections Arcade. So like I say, this is one I've downloaded recently. It's quite big, 93 separate RAR files in there, roughly 700 meg each. So like I say, I've already got it associated with 7-zip. So if you normally, the RAR file probably wouldn't be. So like I just showed you, you double click it, pick the app you want to associate with it. So once that's done, you can then open up the RAR file. And just to say, you can double click on any one of these. You don't have to click on part 1. You could pick on any one, because when you open it, it knows that they're all part of this step. So let's double click on number 6. So that opens up number 6. You can see the contents here of everything that's inside it. Now I'll do that again. I'll do 01. Which I think 6 was quicker because I had already opened it. But obviously remembered that. Obviously caches some information somewhere. But anyway, so that's now I've clicked on 01. It's opened up the same thing. So here's the whole contents of it. Like I say, it's quite big. You can see this emulates folder is 50 gig. This one's 19 gig. So you can see why they're split over over multiple files, because it's 75 gig in total. If that's one big file that you're trying to download, internet connection drops, it doesn't work for some reason, you have to download the whole thing again. At least if you've got it all split into multiple files, 700 meg each, one of them fails, you just download that one again rather than download the whole lot. But anyway, so the key thing I was going to mention here is, I haven't done it yet. So I'm just checking whether I'd already uncompressed it, and I haven't. So like I did a minute ago, you could pick this and drag it over here and just let go, and that will uncompress into the D drive for me. However, with something this large, you don't want to do that, and that's because by default, when you drag it over, how it works is it'll uncompress all this into a temporary folder first, and that will be, on your OS drive and your C drive. And if you're, generally you may not have enough space, especially if it's a very large download, and you might find that halfway through it'll say, "Oh, I'm out of this space, I can't do it," and then you have to start all over again. Plus, it makes it even longer because it has to uncompress it all to this temporary folder, and then once it's finished, you'll then start getting a file copy of it, copying it from the temporary location into your D drive. So it takes a long time to do it that way. Plus, it also takes up space in your temp folder, and it presumes you've got enough space for it. So, rambling on now, but the way to do it would be to highlight here, click on extract, and then you want to pick the path. So I'm going to put this one into it's about a file name, but that's obviously where I've got all this demo files. So I'm going to put it into, I'm just going to call that, if I can type, extracted. So it's going to do onto the D drive a new folder called Quanox Collections Arcade Extracted. Hit OK, and now it's going to go through and do that uncompression. Now this will take a while because, like I say, it's a 75 gig file, and obviously I'm extracting and writing to the D drive, so I'm reading and writing to the same drive, which probably isn't the most quickest and efficient way of doing it. It's a lot quicker if you're, say, you've got the zip file on a separate drive, on let's say a D drive, and you're extracting it to the E drive, which is a physically separate disk. Then you're reading from one disk, writing to another disk. It should be a lot quicker. But you think about my poor hard drive now, trying to read and write simultaneously. So what I let this run through. It's going to take a little while because of the size of it, and like I just mentioned, extracted stuff. But you can see over here, it's created that folder already. If we look in here, it's starting to create the top level folder, and it's starting to create all the content inside it. But yeah, that's going to take a little while. So what I'll probably do now is just pause the video, and then I'll come back when this has got near the end, and we'll just confirm that it's all worked okay. Okay, that's all finished now. You can see that it's finished copying across into my extracted folder, and there's all the contents. It took a little while, but got in the end. So now we can just close out this. Don't need that anymore. So now, obviously finished with the RAR files, because we've copied everything out, it's successful. So obviously we're now taking out double the space, or more than double the space. So delete that, go into the extracted folder. I'm just going to cut that from there, drop it into the root. Just going to take a few seconds to move. I've got another file copy going on in the background, so I'm just going to speed up here. And a couple of seconds. And there we go. Right, so that's moved it out to the root, so that now that temporary extracted folder I had, I can delete, tidy up, and then we just restore by name, and there it is. The top level folder in the root, all the contents inside it, all ready to go. So yeah, that's it. That was a quick whistle stop tour, just tidy up, get rid of those files there. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was useful for some people. Any questions or comments, just put them in the comments at the bottom. And thanks for watching. Enjoy. See you next time.